And good evening, people. We are live from Portland. So, thank you everyone for coming out. I'm super excited to be here. I do not think that I can ever replace the holy Rabbi Rimmer. But for tonight, I hope to do something a little bit with, I don't know what his style is, but I hope to do something a little bit my style that hopefully we'll all gain from. I have a source sheet over there. You all have it, and anybody else comes has it. The Parsha before us, Parshat Mishpatim, is an absolutely incredible Parsha. I say that not just because it's my bar mitzvah Parsha. That's not the only reason. I was born on Parshat Mishpatim and the Parsha was Shkalim at that time also, like it is this week. And not because when you come to Shul the Shabbos, I might know the laning and be able to get through the laning at a quick speed with under 50 mistakes. Not just because of that, but because this Parsha is packed with mitzvahs. There are 53 different mitzvahs in this Parsha. 53 mitzvahs. For a Parsha at the beginning of the Torah, that is a lot, but the Parshas are going to pick up with lots and lots more mitzvahs as we come into the weeks that follow, and certainly then they really jump in the environment in a certain number of places. But in any case, 53 different mitzvahs in this Parsha. We're not going to discuss all the mitzvahs. I wanted to bring out one idea that I think is a very fundamental idea in Judaism in general. And what I gave for you on this sheet is a excerpt from the Sefer HaChinuch. So I just want to say a little bit of a word about the Sefer HaChinuch. The Sefer HaChinuch is a incredible work. It is, let me just shut my own sound over here. The Sefer HaChinuch is an incredible work. The Sefer HaChinuch is dated till the beginning to mid 1200s, somewhere in the 1200s. We don't know for sure who wrote the Sefer. There's a lot of academic theories of who wrote the Sefer. We have some ideas of names, but we're not positive who wrote the Sefer. However, the Sefer is accepted as a tremendous codifier of Torah mitzvahs. Now, all the mitzvahs of the Torah, we have a Masorah, we have a tradition that all the mitzvahs of the Torah equal 613, despite the fact that you'll find myriads, thousands, millions of different halachas and details. They all categorize within 613 different categories. It is not so clear how to count those 613 categories. God did not give us a list of 613 and say, okay, so we're going to break up into these 613. There's a lot of debate on how to count those 613 categories. The Sefer HaChinuch is one of the main sources that people look for the counting of the 613 mitzvahs. There's a lot of debate. Some people exclude one. If you include one, if you say, well, this is a mitzvah, I found this to be a mitzvah in the Torah, you got to pull one out. You can't. It's like. I don't know, give me something. You have the exact amount of pieces, and we're all not like, I'm drawing a blank. You have the exact amount of pieces, you're going to put one in, you got to take one out. You cannot have any more or less. So you have debates between Nachmanides, Maimonides, the Ramban. You have debates about mitzvos. If one of them's going to put one in, someone's got to take one out. That's just the way it goes.
I don't want anybody to get confused. You still have to keep them all. You still have to follow everything. It's just he's just saying, how would you categorize them as technically?
Correct. Thank you. I appreciate it. He said that's right. It doesn't mean that you don't have to keep one. It means that it's not technically its own category of a mitzvah.
So before or after Rambam?
I believe is the Sefer HaChinuch quotes. He follows the order of the Rambam's counting actually. So, but he's not that far. Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, he's not that far after. Right? Rambam is, I think, is in 1100s. Am I correct? So, but he actually follows pretty religiously the counting of the Rambam. So the Sefer HaChinuch breaks up into 3 different parts. He seemingly wrote this as a book for his child to read during Shabbos, on Shabbos, so he shouldn't be wasting any other time in shul, it seems like, or whatever, something like that. But he packs it with halachas and ideas that we look at as being from the medieval times, from the times of the Rishonim, very powerful and very fundamental ideas. He breaks up the book into each mitzvah into 3 different categories. He talks about the source for the mitzvah, the dinei ha-mitzvah. He talks about the different halachas that the mitzvah entails, and he goes through something called the shoresh ha-mitzvah, A reason for the mitzvah. I want to start with that point for a second because it's very, very important. We're going to go through, hopefully, the shoresh, the reason for the mitzvah of lending money to a poor person. He deals with something that's very, very fundamental. He packs in a number of important ideas into very, 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 very few words. But I want to discuss first the reasons for a mitzvah. We have a number of big svarim, monumental works that talk about the reasons for mitzvahs. Like, very good. Anybody else? The Mishnah Torah does, but it's not really his. He does mention bits here and there, but that's not really his agenda. His agenda is really to go through to codify all the halachas. But, Yeah, yes, you do find that.
What did you say?
The Rechaim HaKadosh. You do find that there as well. You find bits and pieces, but you have works that are dedicated to it. Of Hirsch is certainly. He's
right.
dedicated. He almost dedicated himself to go through each mitzvah and what its reason is. You have in Chorev, you have the Chinuch, you have the Rambam in the Morah discusses it at length, and you have.
He doesn't go through every mitzvah.
Doesn't go through every mitzvah. He doesn't, but he does deal with a lot. And so you have and the Chinuch when I said and Rabbi Nachman. Okay. If you take a Chassidus kivun on it, a Chassidus root on it, you'd have that. So the problem is the Gemara discusses the concept of taimei mitzvahs, of the reasons of mitzvahs, and we hold clearly we do not paskin in halacha the reason for mitzvahs. Meaning, in halacha, the reason for a mitzvah is relatively irrelevant. It really is not important in terms of your performance of the mitzvah. So therefore, let's get an example. There are places where the Torah actually gives a reason for the mitzvah. For example, one example, the Gemara talks about this in second parak in Mesechus Sanhedrin rather. It talks about Shlomo HaMelech. That Shlomo HaMelech knew the reason for not marrying many wives, for a king not marrying many wives. He knew the reason for a king not to have too many horses or accumulate storehouses of gold. He knew the reason, and he said, it doesn't apply to me. He then went and violated that, whatever that means over there. He went and violated it, and it says he fell from his great stature because of it. We don't hold the reason of mitzvahs. We do not. Frankly, it's to some extent we don't care. We have to do what we have to do anyway. For example, let's say you're on the front lines of some sort of army brigade, is that what you call it, I guess? And you get an order to do X, and you say, well, I think you only said that because we don't want you doing that. We're not interested in your making decisions. That you got an order, you do the order. That's what it is. So therefore, we have to come to the question: what is the reason for mitzvahs? Why is the Torah? Why are the commentaries offering us reason for mitzvahs? Sorry about that. Everybody understand the question? They're with me on the question. If the commentaries are offering reasons for mitzvahs, what's the point? Who cares? It's not. I was, many years ago when I first moved to Portland, I was sitting. I tell the story. I was sitting in Amzi. I just moved from Eretz Yisrael. And I went to Amzi, and if anybody's been to Amzi, the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry. So upstairs there is a room for children, which I used to call the children lockdown room. It was basically it's like the kids, all the parents are sleeping on the floor, and the kids are running amok. And there's just a lot of things for the kids to do, and you could just kind of hope that your kid stays in the room, and you find parents sleeping and totally ignoring their kids. The children lockdown room. Okay, and in the back of the children lockdown room, there was a room where the kids could make flubber, which is something I'd never seen before. But I came from Israel, and my older kids, they went in there to make flubber. So my oldest daughter, who is now living in Lakewood, New Jersey, my oldest daughter, she took the flubber and she started to roll the flubber into strips and then started braiding the strips. So that's just what she knew to do, coming from Israel. So she's taking it and she's rolling it. So she's making challah out of the flubber, obviously. What else would you make out of flubber? So it wasn't a comment on my wife's challah. She was just this is just what she knew what to do. So the guy comes over to me, and I'm sitting there with my daughter. All I want to do is pass out. I'm sitting there with my daughter, and a guy comes over and he goes, she's making challah, huh? So, I look up. Not a religious guy. I look up and it doesn't necessarily true. So I'm like, okay, I'm getting bageled. So this guy's I'm like, yeah, she's making challah, yeah. And then I kind of just, hi, whatever. And then I just went back to, and he said, you Jewish? I'm like, what gave it away? You know? So I'm like, yes, you? He says, yeah. He says, well, I'm a Boo Jew, which I'd never heard of before the first time. So I said, oh, fascinating, okay. And I kind of just trying to get away from the conversation because I'm just with my daughter. And he continues and he says, I got a question for you. I'm like, no, please, I'm off the clock. I got a question for you. So he says, you know, the Torah prohibited certain foods like shellfish or pork because they weren't healthy. But today we have pasteurization, and there's no problem with that. What would be the purpose of having it still be prohibited? So I'm not going to go into the answer to that in a second, because the question is not even a question. But the point is, if you attribute a reason for a mitzvah, then you're going to go down the line and say, well, it applies or it doesn't apply. So we don't generally do that. I heard recently somebody was talking about the Chazon Ish, one of the great Torah halachic luminaries of the last generation. He generally would not like to give reasons when he said over the halacha to people, if people would ask him, because once you give the reason, then a person's going to start to go home and start to say it applies to me, it doesn't apply to me. He would just tell you the halacha, and if you would ask him the reason, he would kind of say some sort of quip, and that was it. You know, so we do not hold for the reason of mitzvah. So why then do the commentaries bring down mitzvah? So there's there are two ideas, and they're very, very fundamental. The first one is simple. The first one is the reason that you take on with the mitzvah is going to affect your performance of the mitzvah. Example, if I'm going to give tzedakah, what's the reason why I give tzedakah? If I ask most people, what would they say?
To help the poor.
Help the poor. But what's the real reason why we give tzedakah? Because God told us to. Because God told us to. However, if I do everything just because God told us, which is a very lofty level, if I do everything because God told me to, so I am building a relationship with God, but I'm not making any change within myself. The intention that a person has in a mitzvah, they're able to actually make a change in themselves. The kavanah, the intention that they use in the mitzvah, will actually help affect what the mitzvah does for them. One. But there's a real deep, more fundamental reason for mitzvahs. When the commentaries are offering you reasons for mitzvahs, they are offering you true reasons for the mitzvah. It's just not exclusively true. Example. Let's take an example for a second. So a person, it's 8 o'clock, and they turn to their kids, and they say, it's time to go to bed. Right? Kids turn to them and say, I'm 34. But either way, okay. So they turn to their kids and they say, time to go to bed. Okay, so I'm like, Mom, I have my own kids. I got to go to bed first. No, but okay, so they turn to their kids and say, it's time to go to bed, right? So why are they putting their kids to bed? I'm going to offer a reason.
They weren't quiet.
Because it's good for the kids.
Because it's good for the kids, because they need to go to bed. Because if they go to bed, if they don't go to bed, they're going to be cranky them. Won't be able to get them up in the morning. Reason, check. Another reason, he said, because they want quiet in the house. 2, 3, they have guests coming over, and they need the space. They just can't have the kids running around. They'll be embarrassed. 4, the kids getting sick. 5, the parent's sick. 6, the parent wants to spend more time with the spouse. Could all those reasons exist at the same time? Absolutely. They're all could be true at the exact same time. It's not a contradiction. What's the point? The point of time and mitzvahs is the following. We're talking about an infinite God. We're talking about a God that doesn't have to, but a God that chose to give mitzvot to the Jewish people that's going to span over the spectrum of eternity. It's going to go through all of destiny. The mitzvot have to be applicable in every time, in every space, in every era, in every generation. The mitzvahs need to be applicable. And therefore, God, when giving the mitzvahs, takes into account all of destiny. And therefore, the mitzvahs can have multiple meanings, and they are not exclusive to each other. And also, they're not exhaustive, meaning the mitzvah has other reasons besides the reason that you might come to. There are cosmic reasons. Ultimately speaking, the real reason we have is because God gave the mitzvah. So I want to take this mitzvah for a second. I was just introducing that as Tamei mitzvahs. I want to take this mitzvah for a second. The pasuk says in Parshat Mishpatim, I gave it to you in front of you. The pasuk says in Parshat Mishpatim, "Im kasef talve es ani es is in kasef talve es ami es ha'ani imach lo tia lo kenosha lo tisimun alav neshach." It says, if you lend money to my people, to the poor amongst you, you should not be for him a creditor, and you shouldn't take interest for him. Okay. Now, there's a lot of parts in this pasuk. We could theoretically talk about interest and ribis. I want to discuss the mitzvah of lending to a poor person. One note, by the way, in this mitzvah, the mitzvah starts im. And if a person lends, it doesn't necessarily seem to indicate that you have to lend money. However, we learn out that one of the 613 mitzvahs is to lend money. As a matter of fact, the Chinuch brings that down as a bigger mitzvah than to give tzedakah. So even though the pasuk says im, if, the Medrash says there are three times in the Torah that im doesn't mean it's permissible for you. It means you should. When you do this, this is what you should do. And taking for granted that you should do it. It says over here, as the Chinuch brings down, from the Mechilta, Kol im ve'im shebetorah rishus. Every single time it says im, the word if in the Torah, it means you have permission to do it if you want. Chutz v'shosha. There are three times that it doesn't, and this is one of them. Okay. Now, the Chinuch talks about a little bit about the mitzvah, and I want to read to you from now the shoresh of the mitzvah. And there is a number of very, 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 very strong ideas in this piece. And if you have the sheet in front of you, can everyone in the back hear me? Okay. So,
People down the street.
yeah, people down the street can hear me. Yeah. So the Chinuch says the following, and I'm reading from the right side, and you have the translation on the left. Shorish HaMitzvah, the root understanding of the mitzvah. What this mitzvah is about. Sherotza hakel lios bru'uav melamdim umaraglim umargilim b'midas hachesed v'rachmim kihi mida mishubachas. That Hashem wanted his creation to be rogil, to be accustomed to doing chesed and rachamim, to the midas of helping out individuals, because it's a beautiful, beautiful midah. It's a beautiful, beautiful character trait to be chesed oriented, to be in a mindset of being helpful and giving to other people. And he writes here a couple of ideas which we want to connect to. Umitoch hechsher gufam b'midos hatovos yuruim lekabbalas hatova. And by virtue of them refining themselves with these midos, they will be able to receive good from God. That most, that he says, as we've said earlier, and he said it in Mitzvah Mem Beis, in Mitzvah 42, he said it earlier, but good comes to the Jewish people, good comes to the world through those that do good. I mean, they are the recipients of the good. They are the ones that get good. Good attracts good. That he says, and he says further, "Ubehetiv Hashem yisbarach letovim yishalem chafso shachefetz lehetiv laolam, shachafetz lehetiv laolam." Rather, and by doing good, the person is actually fulfilling God's will by allowing God to give good. Let's go through these ideas for a second. There's some really, really great fundamental ideas.
By allowing God to give good.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. So first of all, when we talk about the midah of chesed, we talk about giving. We take it in a very, very kind of, what's the word? Simplistic. Yeah, very simplistic understanding. It's a good thing. You know, we're giving good in order to help someone who's underprivileged in one area, who doesn't have something. It's all about giving to that other person. That's the way that we look at chesed. You need to know the chesed from both a Torah philosophy as well, and halacha as well, but also certainly in a Kabbalistic sense, chesed is the bedrock of all of existence. It is the number one bedrock of all of existence. It's chesed. You have to understand what the midah of chesed is. The character trait of chesed means that I am trying to do away with boundaries and allow my boundary to overflow into yours. That is what we mean by chesed. We're trying to say, and of course that could be distorted, but it's trying to say, I'm allowing something else to accept what I have, and I'm fine with that. It's not a loss for me. It's a net gain, so to speak. I'm allowing myself to overflow into that other being. Obviously, that is the way that Hashem created the world. Hashem created the world. Hashem existed by himself, so to speak. He was all of creation, and Hashem decided he wanted to give to another, so he created other beings to be able to get that giving. We'll talk about it momentarily, but that is the absolute starting point of all of creation that Hashem wanted to give. Once we talk about other things like din, Hashem, us earning our reward, or anything like that, people know, they're kind of familiar with chesed and din and rachamim, different midas of Hashem, different character traits of Hashem. Those all are built on chesed. Let's take an example for a second. You have a parent, again, let's go back to our parent. Our parent wants to have their kid go to bed and whatever, or whatever they want their kid to do. The parent will enforce certain things on the kid. The parent might decide to punish the kid. A kid runs in the street, God forbid. The parent might decide to give the kid a potch or punish the kid or whatever it is. The parent is executing some sort of character trait of din, of punishment. However, really, where is the root of that character trait? That root of the character trait is coming from chesed. Because ultimately speaking, the parent wants to give to the kid. And the parent knows that if the kid isn't going to be alive because the kid is doing things that are dangerous, they won't be able to give to this kid. So din is only a product of chesed. It's a way to get to chesed. It's a means to the ends of chesed. Chesed is ultimately speaking what everything is about. That is the way we look at it. We look at all of the world. So now let's get into the reason for this mitzvah. The chinuch says again. He says this mitzvah is because Hashem, not because he's not discussing the other person at this point. He's discussing the giver. It's not because that person is underprivileged. The giver, Hashem wants it so the giver will refine himself and become a giver. The giver will refine himself and become a giver. He will give chesed. By doing so, a person is changing themselves into something that is a kli, a utensil, a vessel of chesed, and that person will be able to receive good from that. The Ramchal at the very beginning of Das Tvunos, he also talks about it Derech Hashem. He deals with the following point: is mitzvos in general? Is the point of mitzvos that you're getting closer to Hashem, or that you're improving yourself? How do we look at mitzvos? What is Hashem giving us mitzvos for? We can make an argument on both, but ultimately speaking, the chinuch points out over here that when a person is improving themselves, look at it again, mitoch hechsher gufam, as a person improves themselves, as a person makes themselves better, b'midas hatovos, with the various character traits of chesed, they make themselves more pure. You roin the kabbalah satova. That facilitates and allows one to be able to accept good. That's how the system of good works. Good is attracted to good. So therefore, by a person making themselves better, building chesed within them, they're able to become a recipient of the good that Hashem wants to give. Thoughts, comments, questions before we go on?
Yeah, no, that's really fascinating. So this is just like a big foundation for midos in general. What midos do? It's not just that midos is about refining yourself. It's that when you refine yourself, Hashem wants to give you more good, so to speak. That's what we're saying.
Right. Well, it's a person. A person is improving themselves and allowing themselves. It's both. A person is improving themselves and allowing themselves to be a recipient of good. That seems to be what he's saying. Yes.
Specifically by lending, not by
tzedakah is also, he brings the same midah by tzedakah. The midah by tzedakah is also chesed. He says lending is better for whatever reasons, technical reasons. However, because there's less. Right. There's less difficulty for the recipient. So you're causing it's because of just the way that it's structured. However, for you, by the way, it's very misunderstood Rambam. The Rambam talks about, is it better for a person to give $100 at one time or $1 a day for 100 days? And he says $1 a day, right? So the reason why is because you're giving tzedakah and you're building yourself as a giver. You're actually turning yourself into a giver. This does not mean that if a person comes and says, look, I'm freezing cold, I'm going to die, and I don't have any heat, I need $100 to turn on my heat, and say, look, here's $1, I'll be back for the next 99 days. And then and we'll be well into spring, that'll be fine. That's not what the Rambam's saying. The person needs $100. Give the person $100. But because there, your callousness to that person's life might outweigh your wanting to become more of a giver. No, I'm trying to be a giver, man. It might outweigh it, right? But the point is that a person via these mitzvahs can actually build himself into something that is more of a natural giver. The second point, that's one point he makes, and he makes a second point, which is super fascinating. It's the second part I underlined. He says, "Ubehetiv Hashem Yisbarach l'tovim," and Hashem, by being able to give His good, Yishalem Chefzo, He fulfills His desire, Shachafetz lahetiv lo'olam, that He wants to give good. So to speak, you're doing a mitzvah of allowing Hashem, facilitating Hashem to be able to give good. Meaning Hashem wants to give good, and you're turning yourself into good. You're turning yourself into good that allows for you to get good. So by doing that, you're actually facilitating Hashem to give more. And that in and of itself is a mitzvah. It's a very nice Hasidic sounding message. But I want to, first of all, the Ramcham at the very beginning of Das Tfinas, the very, very, very beginning of Das Tfinas, he makes this point. He says,
why doesn't he just, sorry, why doesn't he
did you just want to interrupt at any
Yeah,
time?
yeah. Well,
Whenever you're ready, I'll.
Why doesn't he just say this as a hakdama to the whole sefer? Shouldn't this be a claw? Anytime you're doing a mitzvah, you're because in Olam Haba or anytime you're allowing Hashem now to give you good, you're getting some sort of schar for doing a mitzvah. In a sense, that is a chesed you were doing by allowing Hashem to fulfill the point of
It's
everything.
interesting.
Right? Why he waits here for chesed, and now let me tell you this huge yesod just in general that Hashem wants to give you good, and so you are enabling Him to give you good.
So he's just telling me to read the question. So you're asking that it's so fundamental. There should be as an introductory point that by allowing, you should know in all mitzvahs, a person is building themselves, allowing Hashem to become. Allowing yourself to be a recipient of good. That's what mitzvahs do. He's making a specific point. I hear what you're asking. He's making a specific point about chesed. This is a point that all mitzvahs have an ability to both physically and metaphysically affect a person's level of holiness, so to speak, for lack of a better word. All mitzvahs do that. As a matter of fact, just for a person, just as without dipping our toe into the topic, without going too far into the topic, the good that a person gets, if a person has this imagination that they're going to do mitzvahs, and at the end of 120, they're going to go up to God, and God's going to do a tally, and it's going to be handing out dollars, like a Rebbe. Here's Shirayim and dollars. Here you go. You did all this, and whoops, I gave you one too many. That's not like that. It's a little bit of a babyish impression of the way mitzvahs work. The Ramchal also makes this point, and it's a very, very simple point. Not a simple point, it's a very fundamental point, which is the following, that mitzvahs work to build you. And your reward is that you keep yourself. That is basically what it comes down to. Mitzvahs work that you build yourself, and you get to keep it for eternity. Example, a person goes, I imagine, a number of people work here in industries that they don't get to keep what they make. If you can imagine, you have a person in the assembly line in some other country, I don't know what country, whatever country, fill in the blank, but you have in Asia somewhere, you have somebody on the assembly line, and every single time they make a Mac product, they walk home with it. That'd be awesome. They would be the Mac would be well, Apple would be it's not what we had in mind. You're well, I built it. What do you mean? The person in the Tesla assembly line gets every Tesla. I built it. I don't understand what do you want? No. You're working because you're going to put the hours in, and at the end of the day, we're going to give you money. That's how it goes. It's great, but it has nothing to do with what you did. The work that you did is only a means for us to be able to give you dollars. Nothing to do with each other. Not the system of Torah. The system of Torah is the work that you do. You are building your eternity. You're building yourself. And you keep that for eternity. however great you make yourself, whatever that's going to look like in the next world, however great you make yourself, that is yours forever. So yes, to some extent, all mitzvos work in that. What do you? I don't know if this is something wrong. I thought that's something heretical. Okay, so all mitzvos work to allow a person to facilitate a person in building themselves. However, here he's discussing specifically the mitzvah of chesed, that a person becomes taking on a good midah, a midah like chesed and rachmim allows Hashem. It's going to facilitate the process of Hashem being a giver. I wanted to make a point about his second point. It's fascinating. He says that by doing so, you're actually sort of getting a mitzvah of allowing Hashem to give. I like to quote this piece of Torah. The very beginning again of the Ramchal and Das Tvunos, he says the following. The conversation, it's the whole Das Tvunos of the Ramchal, it's translated as the knowing heart, or recently they put out another translation, I forgot what it's called, I don't know, there's another translation that was put out with a new name, but either way, it's a conversation between the neshama and the seichel. The neshama asks the following question: why did God create the world? Why did he create reality? For what? And the seichel answers the following: says, what we can understand, that God is the source and the epitome of all good. And it is the nature of good to want to give. I like to speak this out to people because it's intuitive, even in our normal thought process. It's intuitive to us. The good looks to bestow good. If I were to ask you, name me someone that is absolutely good, but they're very, very selfish with it. They're very, very selfish with it. They keep it to themselves, but they're so good. But it's just by themselves. I don't want to share that. I just want it for me. It doesn't. What are you talking about? Good somehow it relates to us as something that's shared. If anybody could find an example not that way, I would be super fascinated to hear. If a person is absolutely good, but that's the one thing. I don't excel in I'm a little bit selfish, not a little bit, very, and I like all my good. I do a lot of good for myself. And we say, oh, that person's good. Like, it's a contradiction in terms. So we see that good looks to share good. God created the world to share. God's the epitome of good, created the world to share good. There are two stories that are brought down, one in the Hasidic circles and one in the Misnagdish circles. One of them is brought down about the Vilna Gaon, and one of them is brought down about the Baal Shem Tov. And the two stories go as follows. Very similar stories. There was a time that the Baal Shem Tov, we all know that the Baal Shem Tov was involved in, everything was about all of Klal Yisrael. The beauty of the Baal Shem Tov one day was very tired, and he was home, and he was like, he led like a crass, and he suddenly got this revelation that he had just lost all of his Olam Haba from his being tired of it, just being feeling like he didn't want it. So the story goes that the Baal Shem Tov became very, very besimcha. He was super besimcha because now he felt, until now I thought I was doing it all for schar. Now I know I'm going to get no reward and I could do it just l'shma. And then he got this other revelation, and you get the reward and you get the shalom l'shma, and that's it. And he got his Olam Haba back, and the story. That's one story. There's another story about the Vilna Gaon. They say that the Vilna Gaon that there was only one esrog in Vilna, which is kind of hard to believe because I doubt there was any esrog in Vilna. But in any case, either way, there was one esrog. A very, very rich individual bought an esrog for himself in Vilna, and a student of the Vilna Gaon came and said that they wanted to buy it from him for the Vilna Gaon. He said, "It's not for sale. I want this esrog. This esrog's for me, and that's not for sale." So. The person said that the Vilna Gaon went to the Vilna Gaon and came back and said, the Vilna Gaon offers you, if you give him the esrog, he'll offer you all the schar from this mitzvah, all of it. You can have all of it. He doesn't want any of the schar. He just wants to do it the Shema. He wants it, and you can have all of the schar of him shaking the lulav and esrog. So for that, he gave him the esrog, and he shook, and that person got the schar, and the Vilna Gaon didn't, and he got to do the mitzvah l'shma. End the story. These two stories sound super, super similar. The common denominator of the two stories are that the person in the story, one being the Baal Shem Tov, the other one being the Vilna Gaon, the person in the story is getting an opportunity to do the mitzvah not for the sake of the reward. And they're excited about that possibility. The difference between the two stories is the second story with the Vilna Gaon and the Esrog, I've heard that, I don't know where it is, but Rav Chaim Volozhin brings down the story, I've heard, or makes the point. The second story, I'm not saying it happened or not, it could have happened. But the first story with the Baal Shem Tov is for sure sheker. It's for sure not true.
Rav Chaim Volozhin says this?
No.
Oh.
This is for sure not true. Because there's a fundamental difference between the two stories. What is the fundamental difference?
You want to get close to Hashem.
In both stories again, what do we have? We have a person joining to do a mitzvah without any reward. But there's this huge difference in the stories. In the story with the Vilna Gaon, somebody's getting rewarded. The Vilna Gaon is saying, I'll do the mitzvah just for the sake of Shamayim. I don't need the reward. Let him have the reward. In the story that's brought down of the Baal Shem Tov, he's saying no one's going to get reward, and the Baal Shem Tov was happy about it. For what? The reason why Hashem created the world is for someone to get reward. What? That doesn't accomplish anything for Hashem. Hashem doesn't need it. He doesn't need anything from creating the world. He wanted to be meitiv. He wanted to give. So what do you mean you're happy about no one's going to get reward? So what's the whole thing is pointless. That's not what the system's about. The system's about Hashem giving. So it's one thing if a person says, I'm happy, that person gets the reward. Hashem's ultimate desire of giving is accomplished. Fine, beautiful. But if no one's going to get the reward, the whole system, reason for creation, falls apart. It makes no sense. Thoughts, comments, because you all look like you're wowed. Like, you look like no one's going to sleep tonight. If anybody has problems sleeping tonight, I'm with you. I usually have problems sleeping, so yeah.
No, just maybe you could look at it like he worked on himself so much that like that was the motive for him. Is that like he's like, you know.
But the creation stops making sense. Imagine a what do you call it? Imagine a place wants, you have a pharmaceutical company that's putting out a cure for COVID, let's say. I'm not saying COVID's real or it's not real. I don't know. I don't want to get involved in the conspiracies. But imagine that they're putting out a cure for COVID. So they're making tons of money. So it's all of people start. Of course, the conspiracy theories come up, and they're doing the whole thing as a hoax for money. So they say, you know what? We're going to give it out for free. We're going to give it out for free. So you say, wow, that's incredible. Yeah, clearly, they're not doing it for money. And here, you know what? And then what happens is, as it's going through the assembly line, the thing to take the what do you call it? The chemical and put it in the pill. That machine breaks and the chemical spills all over the floor. It's all over the place. You understand my story for a second? The chemical, they never were able to put it out. And they go to the CEO and he says, great, even better. No, everyone's going to know we did it for what do you call it? We did it for real reasons. Wait, what are you talking about? No one got what you wanted. The mission wasn't accomplished. If you wanted to help people, you didn't help anybody either. The whole mission wasn't accomplished. That doesn't make any sense. If no one gets reward, forget his individual, need to be close and kedusha. Hashem's desire, Hashem's tafkid, his whole purpose in creation is to give. And if no one's going to get, the whole thing fell apart.
Who gets it? Like if I'm doing a mitzvah and this other guy gets a reward, like that's fine. Like
correct. I'm still giving the kavod to Shamayim that Hashem wants to give. I'm, so to speak, enabling kiviyachol. I'm enabling and facilitating Hashem to be a giver. And that's what He wants. But if no one's going to get, I'm taking it away. Many years ago, a parent can generally speaking, they can relate to this. I was speaking to a couple that they became, they took on certain stringencies at home in kashrut, and they stopped eating at their parents' house. And I was speaking to the parents were upset. which, it's under certain circumstances, it's the parents have to deal with it. Under certain circumstances, the kids have to learn to it depends on what the circumstances are. But I was telling the kids, you don't really need to take on this stringency when you're in your parents' house. And they said the following. They said, we're not taking anything away from the parent. We're not taking anything from our parents. We're making it better for them. We're not going to eat. They don't have to make anything. So we'll be okay. We'll do it. We won't eat anything. We're not complaining. We're not asking them to do anything. Just don't make anything for us, and we're fine. But we all know they're taking away from the parents because the parent wants to give. You didn't. The parent's looking to be a giver. You didn't. By being selfish, you've actually removed the parent's ability to give, and that in and of itself is what the parents want. So the chinuch says there are two aspects to the chesed that a person is trying to build. Number one, a person by becoming good is attracted, has good attracted to them. Good comes to one who is a receptacle for good. And by taking in the midah of chesed, a person becomes good. And the second thing is that facilitates the purpose of creation. Because Hashem, ultimately speaking, wants to give. Hashem wants to be a giver. And our job here is to facilitate that process. So we're allowing that process to occur. There was another point here, but I don't know if we'll get to it. I'll just read. I'll make it. He brings down in the third paragraph. If you skip to the third paragraph, we have 2 minutes here. We really don't, but I'm lying and pretending we do. So he says, V'otam, he goes to a third reason. Now here he's not talking about the giver, he's talking about the recipient. He says, V'otam acher b'davar, sherotza akel baruch hu, lefarnes ha'ani ayedei b'nei adam, migodol chetay, kidei sheyuchach, mchov, b'shnei ponim, b'kabolas haboshes, me'asher, kigilu b'tzimtzum ezaynai. He says that a person, the recipient, he's also trying to facilitate the recipient of getting punished for anything they did by becoming a taker. It's a fascinating thing. Here he's saying a whole other angle of the mitzvah. Hashem wanted loaning money to take place, that a person should be able to break their own character traits of bad things they've taken within themselves by having to become a taker.
It takes away any sort of
It's a kapara.
they're supposed to get.
It's a kapara. It's a kapara. Now, the thing that fascinates me with this is a certain, and I feel bad like giving this as a mic drop over here, but there is the mitzvah is being done by the giver. And what it's saying is that by you're doing a mitzvah of giving, realize that person is also is also getting a kapara for whatever they did wrong. That's not what your kavanah is supposed to be as a giver. It's just you're witnessing that person getting atonement, so to speak, for whatever they did wrong. It's going to help clean them out of their issues. I'm sorry, you were going to say?
This is specifically for accepting a loan or for accepting anything from
Stock would be the same, right? Becoming a makabel, right? Becoming someone who has to receive.
So when the Gemara says sonem atonis yichid.
It's funny, I brought down, I skipped that up, but yeah. It's not the Gemara, it's Pasuk and Mishlei, but yeah. It's the Pasuk and It's also brought down in the Gemara. It's in a number of places, yeah.
But that means the person who hates gifts will yichid means like they'll live like whatever that means. This world, the next world. The point is that it's a good thing that you shouldn't like receiving things. That's
correct. Right.
So, but according to this, you should appreciate like, oh, Baruch Hashem, this is like a kapara I get, like of receiving this. I'm receiving this gift from somebody. I'm not excited about the fact that I got $100 from this person. I'm excited about the fact that this took away some sort of.
I don't think anybody's. He's asking that there should be an excitement in the fact that you're getting a kapara. I don't think anybody's when they get into a car accident, God forbid, and their car is totaled. I don't think anybody's like, yeah, baby.
No, but
I don't think that is very, very.
Your parents are trying to give you something, Lamashal, for example, right? They're like, here, I want to give you, you can use a little extra money. Here's a couple $100. I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't want your money. Like, don't give me a couple $100. Like, I'm not supposed to like be looking for hand-me-outs, right? That's not something I'm supposed to be like excited about. But at the same time, like if you understand it this way, you should look at this like Baruch Hashem. Wow, that just took away some part of some sort of ownership I'm supposed to get by me accepting.
That's
this
true,
gift.
but that's
So you
true
should be
about, we have
excited
to push
about
pause,
it.
but that's true because of
Right.
Marav. But that's true, it's true in a lot of different, aspects of calamities or, God forbid, trials or deals that come to a person. Of course, a person's not looking for deals and a person is trying to, it's very funny, literally an hour ago, literally an hour, no, 2 hours ago, my wife was telling me about someone who was arranged some sort of conference, and the conference did not go at all how they wanted, and the arranger wound up to get a lot of embarrassment from the conference because a lot of things came out that the arranger themselves were doing wrong. So I spoke to this arranger afterwards, and the person said, "This is absolutely not what I wanted from the conference." But the person's it's a tremendous person. The person said, "But that's clearly what Hashem wanted me to hear." So, all right.